When I was a child, the teacher asked us what our dreams were. At that moment, I was deeply conflicted. I wanted to become a scientist and explore the universe. I wanted to be Superman and save the world. I wanted to be the best race car driver. I don't quite remember what my answer was back then, but it was definitely not to own a house. Looking back on it all now, it just feels utterly ridiculous. I don't know when it started, but the dream of every young man and woman became owning a house, a place to find shelter in the city, especially when you found someone you love. A house becomes something you long for, day and night. Everything begins with that box of discounted balloons. On Friday, I went shopping with Liu Ryan. At the checkout, we saw a box of balloons on sale for only 6 yuan and 8 cents. Liu Ryan bought it. That night, when we were about to head to the battlefield, we discovered that all the balloons had holes. Some even lost their color. The situation became incredibly awkward. We were both blushing with embarrassment, filled with urgency, but neither of us dared to fight a battle we weren't sure of winning. How about we just go without it tonight? I coaxed her. No way! Liu Ryan shot me a glare. I'll buy you medicine tomorrow morning. I eagerly leaned in closer. Liu Ryan pushed me back with her lotus-like arm. No, it costs dozens for just one box of medicine. That sentence felt like a bucket of cold water pouring over my head, killing all my enthusiasm. I lovingly pulled Liu Ryan into a tight embrace. This girl who had been by my side for 2 years. The reason she refused to take birth control pills was because of the price, and not because they harmed her body. A wave of guilt surged in my heart. I knew Liu Ryan's dream. She just wanted to buy a house in this city, marry me, and live a good life. I earn 5,500 yuan a month. Well, she makes 3,800. After deducting rent, utilities, and living expenses, we save as much as we can. If we can walk, we don't take the bus. If we can take the subway, we don't take a taxi. After work, we go to the market to pick out cheap vegetables, trying to keep dinner under 30 yuan. Liu Ryan hasn't bought clothes in months. She buys cheap makeup online, squeezing out every last drop. By the end, even the packaging tightens. Even with all these sacrifices, we've only saved 110,000 yuan. But in this city, the housing prices are like a speeding train. We're panting, chasing after it, only to watch it disappear further and further away. Liu Ryan and I have looked at houses before. She liked a small unit outside the 3rd Ring Road. It had good ventilation from north to south. The location wasn't bad either, but the down payment was for 150,000 yuan. We tried everything to gather the money. We borrowed from all our parents and friends, but we were still short more than 60,000. Liu Ryan pinned the brochure of that unit next to our bed. She often stared at it absent-mindedly, just like now. Liu Ryan was gazing at the brochure again. When will we ever be able to afford a house? I wrapped my arm around her smooth waist. I sighed deeply. It was in this quiet and peaceful night that a bold plan began to form in my mind. The next morning, I called and arranged to meet Shai Jingxiang. Shai Jingxiang and I had met in an unusual way, to say the least. I was the one who helped her fill out her information during her interview. At the time, I asked, "What's your surname?" She said, "Shai," and I ran through the 100 family surnames in my head, looking at her in confusion. "Could you say that again?" Shai Zhengxiang repeated, "My surname is Shai. The Shai in Chrysler." At the time, I hadn't heard that reference before, and my head was spinning with confusion. Which character is that? Shai Zhengxiang, now impatient, raised her voice. The Shai in history. I slapped my forehead in realization, filled out her form, and told her to wait in line. From morning until noon, the manager was about to leave, and she still hadn't heard her name called. Her fiery temper flared up instantly. Standing at the entrance of our company, She cursed us out for our lack of decency. She yelled about how we had called her for an interview, only to make her wait all morning. Was this some kind of joke? The manager glanced at her and pulled out her application form, saying, "Miss Lee, I called your name around 10 a.m. Didn't you hear?" Shai Zhengxiang looked at the list and nearly fainted. She pointed at me and berated me for 10 minutes, calling me an illiterate fool. The second time I saw her fiery temper was at the small shop downstairs. I had just finished buying something when she came in with a bottle of Coke and a few snacks. As I hurriedly handed my money to the shopkeeper, this girl suddenly said, "Who asked you to be so presumptuous?" I thought to myself, what the hell is wrong with you? Then I loudly told the shopkeeper, "1 pack of cigarettes and a bottle of water with the change, please." Shai Zhengxiang's face flushed with anger, and she looked like she wanted to slap me. But the shopkeeper's temper was even worse than ours. He snatched my money and yelled, "Can't even afford a soft pack of cigarettes, and you're acting all tough for something worth barely over 10 yuan? Why are you pretending to be all high and mighty?" As we walked out of the small shop, Shai Zhengxiang and I exchanged a glance, and both realized how ridiculous we were. That's how we went from enemies to friends. Shai Zhengxiang is a genuine northern girl, tall and slim, with fair skin and a straightforward personality. She's incredibly loyal. The more time we spent together, the more I realized this girl was pretty great, someone worth being friends with. When I arrived at the cafe, she was already playing on her phone. The moment she saw me, she started complaining. "What kind of crazy idea made you call me this early in the morning? I was up playing until 3 a.m. last night, and I'm exhausted." I took a sip of my drink and said, "Is that thing you mentioned last time still reliable?" Shai Zhengxiang looked at me in shock. "Don't you already have a girlfriend?" I said, "That's none of your concern. Just marry me and give me 100,000 yuan when the time comes." "Deal," I said confidently. My friends often joked that having a girlfriend like Liu Ryan was like a toad getting its hands on a swan. Back in school, Liu Ryan was the type of girl who was the school beauty. Our dorm mate, number 6, was the first to fall for her. He sent her gifts, treated her to dinners, and even waited for her birthday to confess. Everyone was teasing them at the time, and Liu Ryan didn't know how to gracefully decline. She told him, "Shave your head tomorrow." Old Six was ecstatic, thinking it was a test of his love from Liu Ryan. That night, he shaved his head until it gleamed like a boiled egg. The next morning, he stood outside the girls' dorm, waiting. People passing by looked at him like he was from another planet. When Liu Ryan came downstairs, she was startled by his new look. Excitedly, Old Six said, "You told me to shave my head." "And I did." Liu Ryan, speechless, asked, "How do you feel now?" Old Six shrugged his shoulders. "It's chilly." Liu Ryan replied, "I meant go somewhere cool and stay there." "I can't believe you actually shaved it." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Old Six standing in the cold wind, nearly in tears. In the second month after we moved to Guangzhou, another graduate student started relentlessly pursuing Liu Ryan. Every day, he would stand outside her office building with a bouquet of flowers, waiting for her to come out so he could approach her, telling what he thought were funny jokes. Liu Ryan was annoyed beyond words. So she told him, "I have a boyfriend." But the graduate student, with a feigned look of deep emotion, said, "It's okay, I can wait. I believe one day I will win your heart." When I heard about this, I was furious. I bought a bunch of temporary tattoos online and asked Liu Ryan to help me stick them on my back and arms. When I looked in the mirror, I even scared myself. I looked like a gangster from the Yakuza. The next day, when that graduate student was pestering Liu Ryan again, I took off my shirt with a cigarette dangling from my lips, and at that very moment, I could clearly feel the passers-by keeping their distance from me. The graduate student was still rattling off cold jokes without a care. I grabbed him by the hair from behind, twisting his head 60 degrees. With a low voice, I said, "Who the hell do you think you are? Messing with my woman?" The graduate student stammered, "I'm sorry, big brother. I didn't know you were her boyfriend." Liu Ryan chimed in at the perfect moment. "I told you I had a boyfriend, but you said it didn't matter. You even said my boyfriend couldn't possibly be as good as you, and that eventually I'd be yours." My grip tightened, his head and neck now almost forming a right angle. "Did you really say that?" Tears welled up in the graduate student's eyes as he hurriedly denied it. "No, big brother, it's all a misunderstanding." He was on the verge of crying, and I figured that was enough. I loosened my grip, preparing to deliver a final warning, telling him to leave Liu Ryan alone. But before I could get the words out, he bolted. The speed at which he ran didn't seem like that of a graduate student. He looked more like an athlete. In the blink of an eye, he was gone. Liu Ryan and I exchanged a glance, then burst into laughter. Liu Ryan is beautiful, but not vain. Unlike many girls who use their looks as a source of pride, she is genuine in her interactions with others, independent, and has her own way of handling things. That's what I love most about her. I packed all the food and drinks into the fridge and said to Liu Ryan, who was lying on the bed reading a magazine, "I have to go on a business trip. It might take a week. Make sure you eat on time while I'm away. Call me if anything comes up." "Where are you going?" Liu Ryan raised her head and asked. "To Kangju in Hebei." I replied, "The boss arranged it." I'm not used to lying to Liu Ryan, so I quickly turned towards the door to answer her. She dashed over to me, checked the fridge, and lightly smacked my head. "Why did you buy so much food? You're wasting money. I can just make instant noodles and get by." My heart tightened with emotion, but I smiled and said, "Honey, I've got some good news for you. I'll make 100,000 yuan on this trip. With what we've already saved, that'll be enough for the down payment. When I get back, we'll buy the house." Liu Ryan literally jumped on the bed with joy for a whole minute, then kissed me several times on the cheek. "Honey," she said, "you're amazing. I'll wait for you to come back. Get some rest early, and good luck." Good luck. Just then, my phone buzzed incessantly in my pocket. I took it out and looked. It was a call from Shai Jingxiang. I casually hung up. "Why didn't you answer?" "It's just spam," I replied. "They're trying to get me into stock trading." Too lazy to explain, I turned off the light, but my heart was pounding. That Shai Jingxiang. Didn't we agree not to contact each other at night? I cursed silently. Sitting on the high-speed train, Shai Jingxiang started discussing the plan with me. The gist was eat more, talk less, take as many red envelopes as you can, and avoid visiting relatives if possible. Shai Jingxiang chewed her gum nonchalantly. "I still think this is too cruel for your parents," I said. "Why don't you just tell them the truth?" "I wasn't sure about this. See this scar?" Shai Jingxiang lifted her bangs, pointing to the left side of her forehead. "My dad gave me this," she said. At the time, I didn't follow his wishes when choosing my major, and he hit me with a chair. I had to go to the hospital and get 7 or 8 stitches. Now imagine if I told him the truth. He'd probably kill me. Shai Jingxiang let her bangs fall back into place and turned to look out the window. In this world, everyone's heart is like a deep ocean. At the bottom of the ocean lie secrets that can never be spoken. Shai Jingxiang's secret was, she was a woman who loved women. Now that she was older, her parents were trying to set her up on dates. Her mother even threatened to go on a hunger strike if she didn't return home. Left with no choice, she made up a lie, saying she had found a boyfriend in Guangzhou. "Things are going great, and we'll get married soon," she told them. Her parents were overjoyed and immediately agreed, saying that if she got married, they would give her 300,000 yuan to buy a house. At a company party last month, Shai Jingxiang got drunk, and with her arm around my shoulder, She begged me to play the role of her boyfriend. She promised to split 100,000 yuan with me once it was over. I thought she was joking, so I played along. But now, with the down payment looming over me, I had no choice but to take the risk. Around 6 p.m., we finally arrived at the neighborhood. As we got out of the elevator, a thought suddenly hit me. Shouldn't we buy something to bring when meeting your parents? I didn't prepare anything, I said. Shai Jingxiang pulled out 2 large bags from her suitcase, smiling as she said, I called you last night to tell you about this. I've already bought everything. My dad doesn't smoke or drink, but he's really into tea. It's best if you don't smoke in my house either. My mom can't stand the smell of smoke. I nodded, got it, anything else? I should know, Shai Jingxiang replied. Try to speak as little as possible. My relatives are sharp. Don't blow our cover. I took a deep breath and said, alright, give me a minute to get ready. But before I could even exhale, Shai Jingxiang pulled out the keys and opened the door. My heart started racing at 180 miles per hour. In that moment, it felt like I was back in high school, cheating on an exam. My palms were drenched in sweat. A man with a big smile said, you're back. I quickly bowed, hello, uncle. Shai Jingxiang kicked me and said, that's my cousin. Her cousin chuckled. I had just finished changing my shoes when a young woman smiled and said, dinner's ready. Wash your hands and come eat. I quickly bowed again, hello, sister-in-law. Shai Jingxiang kicked me again. That's my mom. At that moment, I felt like my brain had completely shut down. I hurriedly bowed again, hello, mom. Shai Jingxiang shook her head, defeated by my apparent lack of intelligence. Her mom, however, clutched her chest with a laugh, saying, this young man is in such a rush. It's the first time we've met. No need to be so hasty with calling me mom. Then the whole room erupted in laughter. It seemed like there were quite a few people. Shai Jingxiang linked her arm with mine, leading me inside. She whispered fiercely in my ear, stop greeting everyone, for God's sake. I immediately shut my mouth. I followed her into the dining room for dinner. At the table, Shai Jingxiang introduced me to her extended family. A whole array of aunts and uncles. I toasted with each of them. And before long, I was feeling dizzy. But strangely, I felt much better. No wonder people say that alcohol gives courage to the cowardly. Just as I was getting ready for the second round of toasts, Shai Jingxiang, worried I drink too much and slip up, took my glass away. Stop drinking, she said, eat some food instead. Her relatives praised me, calling me an honest young man. After dinner, the relatives gradually left. Shai Jingxiang's father handed me a red envelope. I tried to refuse, saying I didn't need it. But her father insisted, shoving it into my pocket, smiling as he said, this is the custom around here. Don't think it's too little, young man. I quickly replied, of course not. Half an hour later, Shai Jingxiang dragged me into her room. Her room had a surprisingly artsy vibe to it. She spread out her hand, saying, hand what over? I asked. She yanked off my jacket, fishing out the red envelope and said, you're good at hiding things, huh? Why didn't you just stuff it in your underwear? I innocently replied, your dad put it there. I wasn't planning to keep it. She licked her finger and started counting the money. There were 20 bills in total. She split them in half, putting one half in her wallet, and handed the other half to me. 50-50 split, she said. That's fair, right? I quickly waved my hands, saying, no, it's fine. How could I possibly take this money? But Shai Jingxiang shoved it back into my pocket, not taking no for an answer. Father and daughter really are alike. Both love shoving money at people. If everyone was like this, society would be peaceful by now. Just then, her mother opened the door and came in, only to catch Shai Jingxiang pulling at my pants. Her mom let out a gasp, quickly closed the door, and mumbled, it's only 8:30. Shai Jingxiang's face turned bright red. She pinched my arm, saying, stop being so dramatic. Just take the money. It felt like she was going to pinch the skin off me, and I let out a yelp of pain. Her mom lightly knocked on the door and said, "Sweetie, your dad's had too much to drink. He's going to sleep. Keep the noise down." I had no choice but to tuck the money away. Shai Jingxiang rolled her eyes at me and went to play on the computer. I felt the room spinning, and I lay down on her bed and fell asleep. The next morning, Shai Jingxiang folded up the bedding on the floor and called me to wake up. I noticed I had 7 or 8 missed calls on my phone, all from Liu Ryan. I wanted to call her back, but Shai Jingxiang's mom knocked on the door, calling us to breakfast. I had to let it go. After breakfast, Shai Jingxiang insisted on taking me to the Civil Affairs Bureau. My heart instantly twisted in knots. Shouldn't we think this through a bit more carefully? Shai Jingxiang, full of energy, pulled me along, shoving me into a taxi, saying, "Don't worry. It'll be fine. We'll get the marriage certificate. Flash it to my parents, grab the money, and head back to Guangzhou. We'll get divorced as soon as we get out of the car. The whole thing costs less than 50 yuan, and we'll make hundreds of thousands. What's there to think about?" Hearing that, I nearly passed out. I said, "You're crazy. Are you treating this like a game of Monopoly?" Shai Jingxiang replied, "The arrow's already on the string. What do you want to do? Do you still want to buy a house or not?" I thought of Liu Ryan staring blankly at that floor plan every night, and gritted my teeth, nodding. With a nervous heart, I walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau. The staff member smiled at us, handing us a form to fill out. After filling it out, he checked it over and said to me, "Young man, make sure you live a good life together and stop smoking." I was completely confused. We're not planning on having kids. Why should I quit smoking? The staff member, exasperated, replied in a harsher tone, "Who cares if you are or aren't? This is a registration office. No smoking allowed." I quickly threw my cigarette away. The staff member asked us a few more questions. "Are you related by blood? Are you getting married of your own free will?" My head was buzzing, and just as the staff member was about to stamp the paperwork, I almost jumped up and grabbed his hand. I turned to Jingxiang. No, this isn't right. We need to think this through." Shai Jingxiang, though calm on the surface, was sweating in her palms too. I pulled her out of the Civil Affairs Bureau. I said, "We can't do this. You have to understand, once that stamp goes down, we're officially married. And with another stamp, we'll be officially divorced. That's a stain on our lives." Shai Jingxiang, frustrated, scratched her head and said, "So what do we do now?" "I've already told my parents. We were getting our marriage certificate today." "I don't know either," I sighed. Squatting by the roadside, I smoked a cigarette, when suddenly I noticed an ad for fake documents on a telephone pole. An idea popped into my head. I had a plan. I called the number on the ad. The guy who made fake documents arrived quickly. He looked to be in his early 30s, with a weaselly face and sharp features. "What kind of certificate do you need?" he asked. "Diplomas, supervisory certificates, accounting certificates. I can do them all." Shai Jingxiang replied, "We need a marriage certificate." The guy raised his eyebrows and said, "Well, that's new. First time I've heard of someone faking one of those. Why don't you just go to the Civil Affairs Bureau? It's only 8 yuan, man, you're really cheap." It was almost 11 a.m., and I was losing patience. I grabbed him by the collar. "Cut the crap. I'll pay you 800 yuan. Can you do it or not?" The guy, startled, replied, "I can. But buddy, could you let me go first?" By that evening, we had to fake marriage certificates in hand. The guy did an impressive job. The photos showed Shai Zhengxiang and me in our dress shirts, smiling happily, and the stamps looked identical to the real thing. We handed the certificates to Shai Zhengxiang's parents. They examined them as if they were priceless treasures, studying them for a long time. Then, with a satisfied laugh, her father said, "Let's open a bottle of good wine. We need to celebrate." Shai Jingxiang's mother beamed. heading to the kitchen to prepare a feast. Seeing how happy her parents were, I felt a pang of guilt. Shai Jingxiang kept her head down, probably feeling the same. Over the next few days, we made symbolic visits to a few relatives. We used the excuse of being too busy with work and boarded the high-speed train back to Guangzhou. Shai Jingxiang transferred 100,000 yuan to me, but I didn't feel happy at all. We barely spoke on the journey back. I felt uneasy. Over the past few days, Liu Ryan had called me many times, but I only answered once, telling her I was in a meeting, and quickly hung up. One night, she sent me a strange message, saying, "Chu Yunfei, I miss you. Will you always be good to me?" I replied with a simple yes. But after that message, Liu Ryan never contacted me again. I told her when I'd be back in Guangzhou, but she didn't call. The sky was gloomy, and I had a bad feeling that something was going to happen. When I returned home, Liu Ryan still hadn't come back. I called her several times, but there was no answer. My anxiety grew. I waited until 11 p.m. When I finally heard the sound of keys at the door, I rushed to open it, only to find a drunk Liu Ryan. It was a side of her I had never seen before. She wore bright red lipstick, with eyeshadow, a low-cut dress, and was carrying an LV handbag. One of the female executives at my company had the same bag, a limited edition that cost over 20,000 yuan. "You're back," Liu Ryan smiled at me, her breath heavy with the smell of alcohol. "Where have you been?" I asked, holding back my anger. "Drinking with my boss." She casually kicked off her high heels and collapsed softly onto the bed. Her eyes held a hint of provocation as she looked at me. "What boss?" I asked. "The big boss of the company, of course." She said, "He bought me this bag." Liu Ryan squinted, patting the LV bag next to her. My fists clenched so tightly that I could hear the tension. I took a deep breath and poured her a glass of hot water. "Drink some water and get some sleep. We'll talk tomorrow." "Thanks," Liu Ryan said with a faint smile, taking a small sip of water. "Then I'll go to sleep now." With that, she stripped off all her clothes and buried her face in the pillow, falling into a deep sleep. I was trembling with anger, but worried she'd catch a cold, so I pulled the blanket over her. That night, I couldn't sleep. I watched Liu Ryan sleep peacefully beside me, and my mind wandered back to the past. After we graduated from university, Liu Ryan endured hardships with me. We took a slow green train to Guangzhou, with only 6,000 yuan between us. We couldn't afford a sleeper cabin, so we crammed into the noisy, sweltering seating section. Beads of sweat kept forming on Liu Ryan's forehead, and I took out a book to fan her. She asked me, "Chu Yunfei, will you treat me well?" I said, "Of course." Liu Ryan playfully winked at me. "How will you treat me well?" I said, "When I make money, I'll buy you a big house, get you a nice car, and take you shopping at the mall. I'll tell the sales assistant we don't need this or that. Just pack everything else for my girlfriend." Liu Ryan burst into laughter at my words. When we got off the train, it was the middle of the night, and we had to cross an overpass to catch the bus on the other side. I was carrying 2 suitcases, while Liu Ryan held several large bags. The overpass was especially tall, and we were both out of breath as we climbed. Finally, we reached the top, but Liu Ryan suddenly bent over, her face pale. I quickly dropped everything, rushed to her side, and patted her back. "What's wrong? Where do you feel uncomfortable?" Liu Ryan started retching, and soon she was only bringing up clear liquid. I realized what was happening. She was exhausted. She hadn't slept on the train and barely ate anything. Sensing my concern, Liu Ryan wiped her mouth with a tissue, smiled, and said, "I'm fine. Just a little nauseous. Let's go buy the tickets." I laid the suitcases flat on the ground and let her sit on one. "No rush, sit here for a bit. I'll get you something to eat. I went to a nearby breakfast shop and bought a few siumai and a cup of soy milk. I had to admit, the prices near the station were ridiculous. That small meal cost me over 30 yuan. The sky was beginning to lighten, with a golden glow slowly appearing on the horizon. I urged Liu Ryan to eat something. She asked, "Why aren't you eating?" "I already ate earlier," I lied. Only then did she relax. After finishing the food, Liu Ryan's complexion looked much better. She pointed toward the distant skyscrapers and said, "Look how beautiful they are." I replied, "So beautiful, the sunlight bathed the clean streets, and the towering buildings cast strange shadows, while giant electronic billboards played the latest fashion ads. This city felt like a young person who had just washed their face, full of life, overflowing with energy." At that moment, I made a vow. I would put down roots in this city and give the girl beside me a home. We rarely went to the movies, unless we found discounted tickets. We rarely ate out, unless it was for a major holiday. Once Liu Ryan got sick, and I carried her to the hospital. She had 2 for drips, and it cost over 400 yuan. Liu Ryan was distressed by the cost, so from then on, she never told me when she had a cold or fever. She said medical bills were too expensive. When we ate, she always put the meat in my bowl. In the 2 years we'd been in Guangzhou, she had lost 7 or 8 pounds and looked a bit worn out, but never once complained. She always held my arm and smiled. But time wears people down. Even with love, it's not enough. How did things change so drastically in just a few days? What had really happened? The next morning, I opened my eyes and saw Liu Ryan sitting in front of the mirror, getting ready. She finished her makeup and began pulling her stockings over her calves. Seeing that I was awake, she said, "Can you pass me my shoes?" I picked up her shoes and knelt beside her. "Why did you drink so much last night?" I asked. "Socializing," she replied casually. "When's your next day off? Let's go look at houses." I took out the bank card Shai Zhengxiang had given me and placed it on the table. Liu Ryan picked it up with a smile, but her eyes studied me with a complex expression. She placed the card back on the table. "This money, you worked hard for it. Keep it for yourself." "What's wrong?" I asked, her behavior making me feel uneasy. In my mind, she should have been overjoyed, not reacting with such indifference. "Nothing," she replied. "I'm heading to work." She stood up, spritzed a bit of perfume on her neck, grabbed her things, and headed downstairs. Over the next few days, Liu Ryan was distant with me, her words carrying a sense of detachment. At night, when we went to bed, whenever I moved closer to her, she deliberately shifted away. One early Saturday morning, she said she was going shopping with friends, dressed up nicely, and went out. The frustration in my heart grew stronger. I got up and poured myself a glass of water, but suddenly something felt off. The floor plan that had been by the bed was gone. Panic pierced through me like a sharp needle, because that floor plan represented Liu Ryan's dream. How could she possibly have lost it? I threw on my jacket, rushed downstairs, and called Liu Ryan several times. She didn't pick up. I wandered aimlessly around the street like a headless chicken. Around 1 p.m., Liu Ryan finally called me back. My tone wasn't pleasant. "Where are you? What's going on?" She replied in her usual cold tone. "What's wrong with you lately? Are you seeing someone behind my back?" "How could you think that?" Liu Ryan calmly retorted. "Where are you now?" "I'll come to you." My frustration only increased. "Don't come, I'm with friends. It's not convenient right now." Her response made me even more agitated. "We'll talk when you get home tonight." Just before Liu Ryan hung up, I heard a man's voice in the background, asking, "Where are we going later?" I kicked over a trash can on the sidewalk, startling a little girl eating ice cream behind me. Her ice cream fell to the ground, and she looked at me with tear-filled eyes. Realizing my outburst, I bent down and set the trash can back up. I smoked a whole pack of cigarettes downstairs, waiting until past 11 p.m. Finally, Liu Ryan came home. She got out of a BMW, smiling and waving to the person inside. The man inside rolled down the window and asked, "Do you want me to walk you upstairs?" I could finally see his face clearly. A man in his 30s, with a commanding presence, dressed in a suit. The picture of success. Liu Ryan shook her head with a smile, then stumbled over toward me. She had been drinking again. As soon as she entered the hallway, she was startled by the sight of me. Her face showed a hint of guilt. In a hoarse voice, I asked, "Weren't you shopping with friends?" "Yeah, and the man who brought you back." "Who's he?" "Oh, he's my boss from work. He was just giving me a ride since it was on his way." "Is that the same boss you were drinking with before? The one who bought you the bag?" "Yeah," Liu Ryan said, slowly approaching me. Her large eyes filled with mockery. "Is there a problem?" "No, no problem." I smiled, feeling a sense of release. "Liu Ryan, I get it now. In city life, poverty is the biggest third wheel in a relationship." She had had enough of a life of scraping by. Enough of having to count every penny just to eat. Enough of living in a room without air conditioning. Enough of the despair that came with seeing things she liked but could never afford. She came from a good background. There was really no reason for her to stay with me and endure poverty. The idea that love can fill an empty stomach was probably just her way of consoling herself. We silently agreed to keep our distance from each other. We washed our own dishes after meals and slept apart. I slept on a makeshift bed on the floor. That man showed up a few more times, dropping her off downstairs and taking her out for meals. I found out his name was Shai Hao. Like me, he was from Wuhan, 32 years old and the vice president of Liu Ryan's company. He was excellent at sales. I watched them chat downstairs. Liu Ryan stood next to him in a dress. And then it started to rain. Shai Hao went to the trunk of his car, pulled out an umbrella, and held it over Liu Ryan's head. A pang of bitterness rose in my chest. They looked perfect together. Nearly a month of silent treatment. Each day left me more emotionally drained. "How long have you known him?" I suddenly asked one night while we were in bed. "Shai Hao, it's been a while. He oversees our entire department," Liu Ryan replied calmly. "Does he treat you well?" "Yes, very well." Liu Ryan's voice was quiet. "Is he sincere with you? Someone like him, a wealthy man, isn't he just playing around?" "He's not like that," Liu Ryan said, turning over. Facing the wall in the darkness, we fell into silence once again. I looked at Liu Ryan's back and couldn't stop the tears from welling up. "Liu Ryan," I called softly, "let's go out to eat tomorrow. Let's have a breakup meal. I resigned today, and I've already bought a train ticket back to Wuhan. You should be with him." Upon hearing this, Liu Ryan suddenly sat up, turning her face toward me. In the faint light, I saw a fleeting look of sadness cross her face, but it was quickly masked. "All right," she said calmly. "I'll do as you say." The next morning, Liu Ryan pulled a suitcase from under the bed and started packing her things. But really, what was there to pack? Her skincare products had long been used up. Only the bottles remained. She had just a few items of clothing and one pair of shoes with a broken heel. She slowly and methodically packed her things into the suitcase. What she really wanted to pack, I suppose, was her emotions. Watching her frail body moving back and forth, a heaviness settled in my chest. I offered, "Why don't you keep staying in this apartment? Moving is such a hassle." Liu Ryan replied, "It's okay, I've already found a new place in that neighborhood where we couldn't afford a home. A 3-bedroom unit. I'll be moving there this month anyway." I was at a loss for words. I sat on the chair smoking. After she finished packing, Liu Ryan started putting on makeup. She did it with meticulous care. When she was done, she stood up, put on a black dress, and let her hair down. I had never seen her look so beautiful in the morning light. Her skin was as white as snow, her lips red, her teeth gleaming white. Her eyes were like clear pools of water. The fitted dress accentuated her figure. Her collarbones were beautiful, her legs long and graceful. She reached out her hand to me, smiling. "Let's go," she said, as we hailed a taxi to the city center. On the streets, many men stole glances at Liu Ryan, but she just held my hand tightly, leaning into me. This closeness gave me an illusion, as if we hadn't argued, as if we weren't about to part ways. From morning to dusk, we had less than 12 hours left together. It was our final time together. I wanted to make the most of every minute. I took her to a Western restaurant, ordering far more food than the two of us could ever finish. Eventually, the waiter even advised me to stop ordering, but I kept ticking off items on the menu. I took her to see a movie on the big screen. For the first time without using a group buy coupon, I bought 3 boxes of Haagen-Dazs, almost spending all my money, and she couldn't even finish them. I took her to Chimelong to ride the roller coasters. The ticket seller told me, "We're about to close." "That's fine," I said. "Just once is enough." During the free fall, she screamed and held my hand tightly. I took her to eat seafood, ordering a fish that took up half the table, causing many people to take out their phones to snap pictures. Let me treat her well, even if it's just for one short day. "Let's have a drink," Liu Ryan suggested. "When did you become such a drinker?" I asked. "You used to never touch alcohol." She laughed. "I just feel like today is a good day for a drink. If you don't want to drink, then forget it." Liu Ryan pouted. It was a look I hadn't seen in a long time. The way she used to look when she threw a little tantrum. Who's afraid of who? I raised my hand to call the waiter to bring over more drinks. We drank late into the night, until we were the only ones left at the seafood stand. Our conversation meandered aimlessly. Liu Ryan laughed at my jokes. Her face flushed red with warmth. "Liu Ryan, after being with me for so long, do you regret it?" After finishing my last drink, I asked, head lowered. "Never," Liu Ryan replied, finishing the rest of her drink. "I've never regretted it." "That's good," I said, standing up to pay the bill. I took her by the hand and walked to the street. No matter how much you cherish a day, it still only has 24 hours. No matter how sentimental you get, the time to part always comes. "When are you leaving?" Her hair was tousled by the wind. "The day after tomorrow," Chu Yunfei. She looked straight at me. "Do you know? I gave you the best years of my life." It was almost like a moth to a flame, with burning passion, unwavering trust, and loyal companionship. "Do you understand?" I understood. She meant that she had given me everything she had, so now she had the right to pursue her own happiness. I smiled at her, hailed a cab, and helped her get in. Her eyes turned red, and just as the car began to pull away, I saw a tear slip down her pale cheek. Once her car disappeared from my view, I raised my hand and hailed another taxi for myself. I had spent all the money I had, emptied 3 bank cards and a bit of cash, secretly slipping them into Liu Ryan's suitcase. The days ahead were bound to be difficult. I had less than 20 yuan left to my name. I called Li Yunlong, my best friend of over a decade. I asked him to transfer me a few thousand yuan. Yunlong asked, "What happened? Did something go wrong?" "Nothing, just a bit short on money," I replied. "Don't worry, I'll pay you back next month." "To hell with that," Yunlong shouted. "What do you take me for? I'll send it over now." And with that, he hung up. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed with 2 notifications. One was from the bank, telling me Yunlong had transferred 10,000 yuan. The other was a message from Yunlong. "Old Chu, if things are tough out there, just come back. The brothers are all waiting for you." I rubbed my eyes, and the driver handed me a bottle of water from the front seat. "Cheer up, young man," he said. It's not the end of the world. Guangzhou's night view is beautiful. Tears flooded my eyes, and I couldn't hold them back anymore. How did you end up like this? Shai Jingxiang grumbled as she helped me make the bed. Sorry, I had nowhere else to go, so I'm crashing here for the night. Don't worry, I said. I'll just sleep on the couch. She ignored me, finished making the bed, then sat beside me, handing me a cup of hot tea. Tell me, what will it take to make you feel better? Anything except me sleeping with you. Shai Jingxiang joked with her usual carefree attitude. I nearly spat my tea all over the coffee table. I turned my face away. Get lost. Shai Jingxiang laughed out loud and pulled out her cherished DVD collection. We curled up on the couch, watching old movies together. Halfway through a new movie, my phone lit up. It was a message from the real estate agent reminding me that the development was almost sold out. If we still want it, we need to act fast. My heart sank. Who was I even buying a house for anymore? Just as I put down my phone, Shai Jingxiang suddenly grabbed my hand. She pointed at my phone's wallpaper. A photo of me and Liu Ryan together. Is this your girlfriend? She asked. I've seen her before. I thought she was joking again. Stop bringing up the worst possible thing right now. I'm not in the mood to mess around with you. But Shai Jingxiang looked unusually serious. I'm not joking, she said. I saw her at my hometown outside the apartment complex. When? The day we got the fake marriage certificates. In Kangju, at your family's place, did you talk to her? No, she replied. I saw her when I went out to buy something at night. She was staring at me, looking really strange. I asked her if something was wrong, but she just turned and ran. That's why I remember her. I jumped up as if I had been electrocuted, fumbling to put on my shoes. And stumbling out the door. Everything suddenly made sense. Why Liu Ryan's attitude had changed so drastically. Why she no longer cared about buying a house. Why she had become so cold to me. It was because she had followed me to Kangju. She had seen me with Shai Jingxiang, acting as if we were a couple. She saw me bowing and acting courteously to those relatives. Saw me walking into the Civil Affairs Bureau with Shai Jingxiang. Chu Yunfei, I miss you. Will you always be good to me? How heartbroken must Liu Ryan have been that night? Do you even know? I gave you the best years of my life, nearly with the passion of a moth flying into a flame, with unconditional trust and unwavering companionship. Do you understand? She wasn't defending herself. She was giving me one last chance. I ran as fast as I could, cursing my own stupidity the whole way. I had hurt the girl who loved me the most, and thought she left me for material vanity. Chu Yunfei, you idiot! I yelled at myself, my voice echoing through the empty streets. I had never felt so terrified. Shaking, I opened the door to our rental apartment. It was completely empty inside. Liu Ryan had already left. I immediately rushed to the 10th floor apartment, the place I suspected she might be. During our Cold War, I had figured out where my rival lived. Panting, I pounded on the door until my hands bled. Shai Hao, wearing pajamas, opened the door. He looked at me coldly. Who are you? Where's Liu Ryan? I tried to peer inside, but I didn't see any sign of her. Are you her boyfriend? Shai Hao's face broke into a smirk. Damn you! I swung a fist at him. But the man was quick. He dodged and grabbed my arm with surprising strength. Give Liu Ryan back to me. I swung my other hand at him, but he twisted my other arm too. Damn! I hadn't expected my rival to be a trained fighter. I struggled desperately, but he had me locked tight. Damn it, what kind of boss are you? You should have gone into martial arts. I cursed silently. Calm down, little brother. Let's talk this through. He let go, stepping back with a smile still on his face. I gave up on fighting him. There was no way I could win. I could only glare at him with all the fury I had. Come in and sit down, Shai Hao said as he walked inside and poured me a glass of water. I sat down on the couch, dry-mouthed and agitated. "Where's Liu Ryan?" I asked. I gulped down the water without any courtesy. "She's not here," he replied. "Didn't she say you bought her a house? Where else could she be?" "We aren't in the kind of relationship you're thinking of," he said. "Since we're both from Wuhan, I've just been looking out for her like a little sister. Recently, she's been in a bad state. She kept going to bars drinking, and a few thugs started bothering her. I chased them off and asked her what was going on, but she wouldn't tell me. She just kept crying. I was worried she might do something reckless, so I've been taking her out to distract her, shopping, eating, hoping it would lift her spirits." "And what about the expensive bag you got her?" I demanded. "What's your real intention? She bought that herself." He explained calmly, "I'm not as rich as you think." Shaihao's voice was gentle. "Don't try to fool me. You must know where she is." "I'm waiting for her." "I honestly don't know," Shaihao said, standing up. "And besides, what reason do I have to lie to you? You're not even a match for me." Those words stung, but they were true. I sighed and walked out of his apartment. Just as I was about to step into the elevator, Shaihao called out to me. "Hey, little brother," he said. "Don't let doubt ruin your relationships. Be honest with the people closest to you. If you make a mistake, you might regret it for the rest of your life." Shaihao was a handsome man, but as he spoke those words, his face looked weathered, full of life's burdens. "I don't need your advice," I muttered, rubbing my hands. As I stepped into the elevator, Liu Ryan must be completely disappointed in me by now. She had changed her phone number, blocked me on all platforms, and even quit her job. In this bustling city, finding her was like searching for a needle in a haystack. I searched for 3 full months, spending every cent of the money Yunlong had lent me. Around that time, my father was hospitalized due to high blood pressure, and my mother called urging me to come home. I had no choice but to buy a ticket back to Wuhan the night before I left Guangzhou. I sent an email to Liu Ryan. I'm not someone who's good with words, and I spent the whole night struggling to write, but I only managed to get down about 1,000 words. The next day, as I boarded the train, I felt utterly exhausted. After stowing my luggage, I leaned against the window and fell into a deep sleep. The train rumbled on, stopping and starting, and I dreamed scattered dreams, where her gentle, beautiful face drifted further and further away from me. When I woke up, my face was wet with tears. I stretched, catching a familiar scent in the air. My heart began to race, and I slowly turned my head. There, sitting beside me, was Liu Ryan in a floral dress. She was right there, with a playful look on her face. I slapped myself across the face, wondering if I was still dreaming. "What are you doing?" Liu Ryan laughed. "You've slept yourself silly, it's not a dream." I immediately grabbed her arm. "How are you here? You're hurting me," Liu Ryan said, patting my hand, her expression turning slightly annoyed. "Why wouldn't I be here? I'm going back to Wuhan too." "But how did you know I was on this train?" I didn't dare let go, afraid she'd disappear again. "I have my ways," she said with a mischievous smile. "You read my email?" "If you can even call that an email," Liu Ryan chuckled. "It was full of typos, even a kid could write better." "Does that mean you've forgiven me?" I looked at her, unsure and hesitant. "Yeah, I suppose. I was wrong too. I misunderstood you." Liu Ryan wrapped her arm around mine. "How did you figure it all out?" "That's a secret I can't tell." She winked, then rested her head on my shoulder. "But none of that matters anymore." I laughed stupidly, holding her tightly. The train kept moving forward, and the fields outside looked like an impressionist painting. "Chu Yunfei, before I met you, I didn't think there were any good men in the world, and after meeting me, I realized there are way too many good men out there." She laughed lightly, her voice floating through the train car. In the glow of the setting sun, we held each other tightly, finding peace in our togetherness. We felt an unprecedented sense of peace. Take a swig. It'll help with the nerves before going on stage. Yunlong pulled out a bottle of ergwotu from his pocket and shoved it in my face, making me gulp down a big mouthful. Why does this feel like I'm heading to an execution? I was sweating profusely. The MC called for the groom several times, but I was lost in thought. Yunlong gave me a shove, and I stumbled onto the stage in a clumsy manner, causing an eruption of laughter from the crowd. I saw many familiar faces. The groom seems really excited. Can't wait, huh? The MC teased me, gesturing for me to step up to the microphone. And now, let's welcome the bride. Let's give her a warm round of applause. The MC announced loudly. The applause was deafening. The music of Canon in D filled the room, and I saw Urian, dressed in her wedding gown, slowly walking toward me. She was breathtaking, like a celestial goddess. After the ceremony, I downed a few rounds of drinks and went backstage to find Liu Ryan. I saw her chatting with another woman. As I got closer, my jaw nearly dropped. The woman was Shai. The two of them were laughing and talking, looking incredibly close. What are you doing here? I couldn't help but ask. What kind of question is that? We did get a marriage certificate after all. Shai Zhengxiang teased with a mischievous grin. You really treat your ex-wife like this? Shai Zhengxiang smirked. Wait, wife, let me explain. That certificate was fake. I was sweating all over as I tried to explain to Liu Ryan. She twisted my arm playfully and whispered softly, "Shut up. Alright, I'm done teasing you, but you really owe me a big thank you." If I hadn't shamelessly explained things to her, your beautiful wife would have really left you. I finally understood the secret Liu Ryan had been talking about. The day before I left Guangzhou, Shai Zhengxiang and Liu Ryan had run into each other on the street. At the time, Liu Ryan thought Shai Zhengxiang was my new girlfriend and didn't want to talk to her. But Shai Zhengxiang insisted on taking her to dinner and shared her own story, while also explaining our ridiculous plan about the fake marriage and splitting money. She even showed her the fake marriage certificate. It finally convinced Liu Ryan that it was all just a misunderstanding. Thanks to Shai Zhengxiang's persuasion, Liu Ryan had appeared on the train the next day, and by my side. Thank you, I said, feeling touched, patting Shai Zhengxiang on the shoulder. Stop being so sentimental, she said, grabbing my hand and placing it together with Liu Ryan's. Take care of each other. I wish you both happiness. Sunlight filled the street, and the carefree girl waved at us. Before jumping onto a bus, Liu Ryan and I exchanged a glance and couldn't help but laugh. In life, we often find ourselves running toward important things, sometimes for dreams, sometimes for a career, sometimes just to survive. In this materialistic age, perhaps we should take a moment to slow down. Houses, cars, jobs, all of these can come in time. But there's one thing you can't afford to wait for. When you meet the right person, you must run to her with everything you've got. Don't leave any room for regret, because when you find the one who's truly right, walking just won't be fast enough.